open up the floor for questions. We'll open up right in the middle. Dave Biddle, 24/7 Sports.
Ryan, I know things can change based on the circumstances, but right now is the plan to redshirt Evan Pryor and Kyle McCord if possible? I think they've only played 4 games.
Right. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, we still have a lot of football left, like you said, but if we can, we would like to, but you just never know what's going to happen here. Still a lot of big games ahead of us.
How much of a, not just with those guys, but every year, how much of a balancing act is that? You didn't have to worry about it last year, but just how much of a balancing act is that? Trying to preserve that year of eligibility, but also doing what's best for your team this year.
Yeah, I mean, you just have conversations and you try to figure that stuff out. But you know, the good news is some of these guys are actually able to play some games and still redshirt, which is a great thing. You know, how many guys are actually planning on playing for 5 years, and that's up to the individual. But you know, certainly this time of year, things like that do come up.
Jerry doesn't think we're asking enough questions, so I do have one more. Master Teague, how is he feeling? Do you think he's going to practice today? And just how's he doing overall?
Okay, he's doing okay. It's kind of day-to-day right now.
Thank you.
Right next door, Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
Ryan, your senior day honorary bed now. There's some guys who are like juniors in terms of eligibility and compete for Master Teague, and then there's some seniors who are also on the list, like Roger Mitchell. I guess, can you walk us through kind of like the list a little bit?
Yeah, no, we just, you know, anybody who's, you know, considered a senior, whether it's eligibility wise, you know, who wants to go ahead and walk, you know, out on that before the game, they get a chance to do that. I don't think most of them made a decision on what their future holds for them, but at the same time, you know, they want to have that opportunity. So if something were to happen, whether go to the NFL or whatever, that they would have an option to do that. So we just kind of leave it up to them. I wouldn't look too far into any of those things.
And as far as this week's matchup goes, Kenneth Walker's leads the nation in rushing, really good back. He's kind of known for his patience, and people have talked about that. What do you see as the challenge with stopping him? Was there any kind of like similarity with Moai Ringman in the first game? He was a guy who was kind of talked about his patience. Have you faced a back like him?
I don't know. You're right. He does have great patience. He's you know, run the ball just about everybody in the country. Their line does a good job. They have, you know, very good offense, and he's a big part of it. Makes a lot of guys miss in the hole, and so you know you're going to need to do a great job up front in defeating blocks, and then you know it's going to take more than one guy to bring them down. But you're right. I think his vision and his patience and his ability to make a guy miss in the hole are probably some of the things he does best.
Third row left, Dan Hope, 11 Warriors.
Ryan, you guys didn't really get any pressure on the quarterback against Purdue. Obviously, they were getting the ball out quickly, but when you look back at the film, is there anything you look at and see as a concern there?
You know, the game kind of turned into a passing game quickly because the score was so lopsided early on, and you know we jumped up pretty heavily on them, and the ball was coming out quickly, and we were rallying to the ball. But certainly, you know, there's times where we could have tightened up the coverage, and there were other times where you know we probably could have got to the quarterback faster. So. Again, there was a lot of things on that film that we learned, especially playing against a more, you know, pass-heavy team. You know.
Is it hard, you know, in a game like that, you know, you're up 35-7, you know, and then the rest of the game, you kind of have a bigger lead. Like, is it harder to maybe keep the same level of defensive intensity, but you would in a closer game?
It shouldn't. It shouldn't. I think maybe human nature kicks in, but it's certainly not what we want. We have a standard every time we get on the field to score 0-0. So that shouldn't affect us. Whether it did or not, I don't know. But, you know, we play to our standard here.
Right in front, Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
I think Travion played maybe the first 3 or 4 series, and then you guys brought mine in. Is that the kind of knowledge you're looking for there? Obviously, Travion being your guy, but you know, working with another guy maybe 3 or 4 series in.
Yeah. I mean, that's about right.
And, how with Mayan and Travion specifically, like how do they complement each other?
I think, you know the skill set, but I think Travion has his skill set. I think Mayan brings in, he's got, you know, really good vision. He's strong, he's powerful. I think you saw him finish some runs off where, you know, he was turning those runs into more than they were, and running on contact. I think he's really good at that. He's built low to the ground, so he's strong when he runs. And, you know, I think, you know, Travion's probably a little bit more of a home run hitter, but both really good backs, and like you said, they do complement each other.
Fourth row middle, Pat Murphy, 24/7 Sports.
Ryan, you talked after the game about CJ's preparation, and he talked to us afterwards about watching film, talking to his teammates about the film, and then seeing that in games and thinking that's helped. When in the course of his development did you see that start to happen, where he was preparing the way you wanted him to, and he was helping other guys in that sense?
I think it's slowly grown over time, and it's going to continue to grow, and we still have a lot of work to do there. But I think it's just kind of a gradual thing. But I think when he came back after the week off, he kind of came back with a little bit of a different bounce in his step. I think he was healthier, but I think he had a different perspective, and he really kind of started to own and take accountability for the offense.
And Lathan took responsibility for the touchdown over the top of him after the game. Bryson, not Lathan. He said that can't happen, and it seemed to get to him. How have you seen him kind of step into that role that Josh had at the beginning of the year, and have you seen the development you like from him?
Yeah, he's been very accountable. He's been a good player for us, and I know he wishes he had that play back, and so he'll come back and get that fixed. But he's a guy that has played well. He's had production. He's graded out as champion. He does a good job of getting everybody lined up and communicating back there, which is very important for the free safety in our defense. He's got tremendous work ethic. He's a tremendous teammate, and so yeah, we all have things we want to get back. So the whole thing is, you just don't let them happen again. You get them fixed, and I'm sure you will.
Fourth row left, Jacob Benj, the Lantern.
Hey Ryan, you got a top 10 showdown coming on Saturday. Just how unique is it that the Big Ten has 3 teams in the top 10? And these games have national implications for not only Big Ten title stakes, but like CFP stakes and stuff like that. How unique is it for the Big Ten?
Well, I think that this has been quite a year for the Big Ten, and I think when you look at the second half of the season in the Big Ten, there's been some unbelievable games. There's been some really good matchups, and it's week in and week out. I mean, I think you're finding who can sustain in November. There's no weeks off. We had our bye week after week 6. And I think most of the teams in the conference did as well. But then after that, I mean, it's all conference games. You're talking 9 of them, and we got very good teams from top to bottom. So you have to bring it week in and week out, and I think that's the challenge right now. And you're seeing some really good teams in the league, and it's obviously a lot stronger this year than maybe the last couple.
Going back to master in mind, speaking about the stretch run, is the plan to kind of split the carries to keep them both fresh down the stretch run, or how do you kind of envision that going forward?
No, at this point, we're trying to win the games. This is you win, you move on. If you don't, you're done. So, I mean, that's the mindset. We're trying to win a championship here, and so at this point, it's you got to go play the best guys that give you the best chance to win.
Front row middle, Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
Ryan, presumably you will be on the sidelines this year against Michigan State, like last year. How hard was that? And can you you allow yourself to savor at least having a normal season, and even with all the pressure, things are kind of back normal. You've got a team that's in the hunt.
Right.
Just kind of address that.
Yeah, I thought about that the other day when I read that there was some outbreaks and things going on across the country, and I thought back on last year and what that was like, having to deal with that, and certainly would never want to go through anything like that again. That week in particular was very difficult. It was great to see, the leaders and our staff really step up and go on the road, and we had a bunch of people down that week. There was some staff members, there was players, so it was a big challenge, but you learned a lot about our character and our culture of this team to go see that happen, and I was proud of that, but it was not easy at all. And it is great, the fans, seeing them in the stands, and every once in a while you take a look up at the stands. At least I do now this year. And when things are going well, you kind of smile because they're enjoying themselves. They're having fun back together again. 100 plus thousand people in the stadium. After a touchdown. I mean that's what this thing's all about. And to say I haven't enjoyed that wouldn't be true. I mean it's been great to get back in there, even going on the road and going into hostile environments. And that's one of the reasons why you coach.
And Michigan State's had a turnaround with Mel Tucker. Can you kind of address the job that he's done and the challenge that you faced this week?
Yeah, very good team. They play with really good energy. I think they're really believing in what Mel's doing up there. He certainly turned that roster quickly over into a championship level roster, and they have really good players, and they played well. They have good scheme, so it's a challenge across the board.
Front row right, Austin Ward, Letterman Row.
Ryan, I know how highly you guys think of Matt Jones and his ability to come in and be that 6th guy. Is that rotation still more about him, or are those other guys more banged up than maybe we know?
It's a little bit of both. We want to play all 6, but there's been some things the last few weeks that have come up. You know about the DeWan situation there, and Nick, had a rough week there. He lost a family member, and we've had some guys who've been dinged up. Paris had a couple things here and there, so we just got to move guys around. It's this time of year, and because of the versatility of Paris and Matt, and some of our guys, we've been able to do that, and so that's a tribute to them.
How have you felt that rotation has worked out, and it seemed like maybe they were more successful with it on Saturday than the previous couple of weeks?
Well, I thought we played well, and we got to continue to do that. We were clean. We were rocking people off the ball. I thought we got really good movement in the red zone, but we were clean. The combination blocks were clean. The pad level was much better. We played with really good energy. Protection was really good. Karlaftis was a big challenge, and they stepped up the challenge there. So that's the type of play we need from the offensive line in November in the Big Ten if we're going to continue to play well.
Second row left, Bill Landis, The Athletic.
Ryan, your first touchdown the other day, you had the crosser, I think, with Garrett and Jackson on the outside there. Did CJ get you into that based on what he saw, and I guess how much leeway does he have for kind of looking at those things and making those decisions?
We've been giving him more and more. He changed that play based on what he was seeing and signaled the play, and it was really, really well done. Again, those are the things that people don't see, is all the hours that we put in to those type of things, and he did it, and that's why it worked. And there's a lot to it. I told the team that in order to be good this time of year, you have to upgrade yourself every week. And I use the analogy of the iPhone. The iPhone that was around 3 years ago is a little different than the iPhone there is now. It has different capabilities. It's more updated, and you have to continually update yourself week in and week out. And because of that, hopefully the guys understand they have to bring it every week, because the plays that worked 4 weeks ago maybe not work this week, because guys, they go in the laboratory and they come up with ways to try to scheme you up, and so you have to continually stay up with, and current with your stuff. And I think he's done a good job of that, and we got to continue to do that again this week.
And that point in particular, it did look like they were going to bring some pressure, and they kind of backed out of it. But CJ saw what he saw, he made his call, and it still worked. Is there anything to sort of sticking to your guns there, even if what you see is not exactly how it plays out?
Exactly right, and that's the biggest thing, is to be indecisive. And we tell them all the time, once you make a decision, be decisive and go make it work, because it's not always going to be perfect. That's not the way the game's played. But as long as everybody's on the same page, we're good. And when you have different tools to get you out of situations, and not everybody can handle that, but he could in that moment. So now he's got to keep building on it.
Deep far left, Mark Snyder, Press Pros.
Yeah, Coach, nobody has really talked much about your special teams this year. I guess that's a good thing. It's so hard to play special teams nowadays, but what has gone into it this year? Nothing really has blown up and cost you a lot of yards, but at the same time, people look like they're making really good decisions catching the ball.
Yeah, I think Parker Fleming has stepped in and done a very good job up to this point of motivating our guys, putting scheme together, bringing a new kicker, a new punter in. But I think the guys in the special teams are taking a lot of pride. I think we have a really good core of guys on special teams. A good mix of some veterans, some young guys, and even some guys who are walk-ons who came into this program who have really built a huge role for themselves in special teams. And they take a lot of pride in it. And I think I mentioned it before. The walkthroughs before a game that we have at the hotel or wherever we're at are as sharp and as real as I've been around. Just an edge to them. They bounce around. It's just really on point. They take their job very, very seriously, and that's winning football. And I think you've seen that on special teams. But again, it's got to continue, because it's week to week.
Is this a product of hunger, with a lot of the young guys coming off great recruiting years wanting to make their mark?
Well, you don't come here to play special teams, and so the challenge is, how do you motivate players to want to play special teams? And there's two things here. First off, we believe our best players play, and we show clips of some of the great players that come to Ohio State who cut their teeth in special teams. The second thing is, when we teach special teams, you're learning football. It's all about ball. So you're learning how to take on a block. You're learning how to use different skills and fundamentals that you're going to use in your position. I think Matt Barnes kind of started it the previous years, but Parker took it over, where they'll show a special teams clip and then they'll show them in their position. So take, for example, our running back who's working a dip and rip. He's got the ball in his hand. He does the same thing on the dip and rip to avoid a tackle. we say it's all ball. You're learning how to become a better football player in special teams. So those are the two things that we talk about to try to help the guys, be motivated to play special teams, and they take a lot of pride in it, and I think you can see that when they're on the field.
Deep left, Brendan Gulick, Buckeyes Now and Sports Illustrated.
Hey, Coach, I realize you started to address it a little bit when Bill asked about Mel Tucker, but when you've had a chance both last year watching that team and now it's a different team this year, but all the scouting you've kind of done, obviously they've run the football well. Beyond that, when they're playing at their best, what does that look like to you?
It's complementary. I think that their defense is very good. They don't give you a lot of X plays. They're very good on third down, good in the red zone. Try to create turnovers, and then they try to control the game on offense, running the football. So when they're creating turnovers and not giving up a lot of big plays on defense, controlling the game on offense with run game, and then play action pass to try to create some things down the field once you put an extra guy in the box. That's kind of their deal. And then they have a good punter, and they're good on special teams. So if they're playing I'm sure they're playing to win is to play field position football just like ours is, then that's kind of their recipe.
Garrett Wilson, the last couple of weeks probably showed why he is so valuable between not being there against Nebraska and what he did last week. What other things can you share with us that you've seen that fans don't get a chance to see when they're watching a game at the stadium or on TV that showcase or highlight why he is so special?
I think it's more about what happened in the off season and his dedication with Coach Mick in the weight room, and his work with Coach Hart in the in the meeting rooms. I think he's just been a pro this year, and has really taken a big step in those areas of being a pro, taking care of his body. He's strong, he's powerful. He's, his football IQ has gone way up in the last year or two. I just think he's really upgraded his game. He's very, very competitive, always has been. He loves to play. But sometimes you can't just go out there and play. You have to play within the offense, and I just think he's taken a lot of strides in that area.
Fourth row left, Jack Emerson, The Lantern.
Hey Ryan, I want to ask about one of those walk-ons on special team. Chris Booker had a tackle inside the 20 on the opening kickoff, and then he helped force that fumble down by the, I think it was around the 11. When you have a team full of 4- and 5-star guys, how does it feel to have a guy like Chris, who was a former club team player, come in and make an impact like that?
No, it's tremendous. And you look at what he's done. He's Player of the Week. Kate Kaczynski, Xavier Johnson. I mean, there's a whole bunch of them that are doing it, helping, and a big part of our special teams. And to see Chris make some of those plays in a big game like that was tremendous, especially with his background and what he's been through, kind of out of football for a year or so, and trying to find his way on the club team, and then obviously walked on here. And when he got here, he looked a lot different than he does right now. So really cool to see guys, kind of self-starters, build themselves into a career.
And I don't know if you've seen this yet, but they have the club team has qualified for the national championship. Is there kind of a pipeline that you see from the club team? Do you talk to Coach Greg a lot, or how does that?
I think we're aware of them, but certainly I can't sit here and tell you I'm an expert on what's going on there.
Right next door, Colin Gate, Rivals.
Hey Ryan, go back to the defense a little bit. You said that you guys kind of used that drop 8 approach a little bit, and I'm curious about what you saw watching film. Did that work? Is that something that you could see, being utilized more in the future, especially with pass heavy offense?
I think it gives you a different look. The windows change, but you still have to execute the defense, and I don't think we did that well enough, to be quite honest. So we'll look at it, and against certain teams, if it gives us an advantage, we'll do it. But you have to execute it, and obviously there's give and take with everything, right? When you rush 3, you buy an extra guy in coverage, but you also lose a little bit of the pass rush. So making a decision on what gives us the best chance that week is what we'll do. But no matter what it is, whether you bring 3, 4, 5, or 6, you have to execute the defense.
And this might be an overly simple question, but what is the pass the rusher's goal in terms of developing like just pass coverage? How important is it to sync pass rush to, I guess, the coverage in the back?
That's everything. Yeah, I mean that's tying up the front with the back end is exactly how you put a defense together, and you have the decision week in and week out to rush 3, rush 4, rush 5, or rush 6. If you rush 6, then you're probably playing some sort of zero coverage where there's no safety in the middle of the field. If you rush 5, then you're probably playing with one safety in the middle of the field in some sort of man-to-man coverage. If you rush 4, then you're probably playing with 2 safeties, or there's an extra guy down, which we call a hole player. And so those are the kind of the conversations that you try to figure out what gives you the best chance to win.
Third row middle, Nathan Baird, Cleveland.com.
And sticking on the defensive theme, you played 2 really strong rushing teams early on, and then since then, that really hasn't been the strength of, I think, any opponent you've played.
Yep.
So how are you kind of assessing, while the defense as a whole has improved, how are you assessing the improvement against the run and
Right.
where you are right now?
Yeah, it's week to week, like you said, because it seems like every week is just a completely different. If you look at Minnesota as compared to, Rutgers or Indiana, Purdue. Now we have Michigan State. Penn State was very different. So week in and week out, it's each team brings in a different set of issues, and all we can do is go off of what we see and do the best we can to put the guys in the best position to be successful. And at the end of the day, it's going to come down to pad level and defeating blocks and a bunch of guys running to the ball. So we'll get. I think at this point of the year, we got a pretty good handle on who we are, and now it's just a matter of executing and playing well.
From a tackling standpoint, is that something that was more emphasized after those 2 earlier weeks, and where do you feel like you are right now, just fundamentally in that regard?
We'll still practice tackling today. It's part of every Tuesday when the pads are on, and it's it was an emphasis in the preseason. We tackled way more than we ever have before because we knew we had a young team, and it's been an emphasis week in and week out since we started because we are still a young team, even though we played a lot more football now. The good news is there's more body of work to go upon, and we have more experience, so we don't need to do it as much.
Third row middle, Doug Lameries, Cleveland.com.
Ryan, you've talked through the year of CJ's development and seeing the field and how you like how he sees the field. Now you're talking about some changes he's making at the line and that kind of thing. How do you evaluate that characteristic in a quarterback recruit? Is that more difficult than evaluating, hey, he's got a good arm or whatever? Like, what's that process for you and try? Because it seems obviously very important to what you want in a guy and to how he's going to succeed.
It's very difficult. It's very difficult, and I think every quarterback is different. But you're looking for some sort of extraordinary trait, whatever that might be, and you do the best you can to try to project what that's going to look like in your offense. But it's not always easy. You get to spend some time with them, but you're not actually in the games with them, and you're not with them in meetings every day, and there's just so much that comes with it. And you do the best you can to try to identify who those guys might be, and you go from there.
So like the mental acuity, seeing the field, knowing what play to get into, that can be the extraordinary trait for some quarterbacks?
Absolutely. And it is for, I would argue that the guys who make it, for a long time in the NFL, the majority of them have that because it's a very complicated game at the highest level. Just to say, I'm just going to go out there and throw the ball around doesn't work like that.
And flipping to the defensive side, ideally with your linebackers, what in the defense that you guys play, how much should your linebackers be identifying something and attacking it? How much is read and react, maybe make sure you're in the right place, but don't be overly aggressive? It just feels like sometimes Steele is getting after it, right? But what's the ideal balance of how you guys want linebackers to play?
Well, you have your keys, and then you use those keys to identify what to do. And so let's just say you're a defender, and you're reading the play side tackle. If the play side tackle pass blocks, typically you need to now react in some sort of a passing mode. But if he's in the run, then you have to get up into the run. And one of the traits, if you're talking about a defensive player, is how quickly can they react? Can they see their keys and then diagnose what they're seeing? And there's a lot to it than just reading the tackle. It might be a screen, it might be a pass play. What is the concepts? What are the splits? What is the depth of the running back? There's all these things that we look at, and the faster you can process information, and faster you can diagnose a play, the faster you can react, like you're saying.
We go far right, Spencer Holbrook, Letterman Row.
Ryan, when you have 3 wide receivers that are doing what your 3 are doing right now, you had Jackson 2 weeks ago, then you had Garrett last week. Are we just supposed to expect that Chris is going to do more of the same this week?
No, we're just trying to win the game. I don't know. I mean, good news is, if guys are just where they're supposed to be, and CJ's throwing the ball where the defense tells him to throw it, then the ball's going to get spread around pretty good. If we start to press, if we start to do anything and deviate other than that, then that's where we get ourselves in trouble.
You have Chris as the lone Bolivikoff finalist, but he's the third leading receiver on the roster. When you hear that kind of thing, like, what do you make of that? Because you're the play caller, you're the guy who's going to get these guys involved along with CJ. Like, what do you make of that?
Well, I think it just tells you, first off, I think people across the country know what a great receiver Chris is, and there's a lot of teams who just decide that they're going to take Chris away and put a corner and a safety over the top and say he's not going to beat us, because we've seen him do it against a lot of people in the country. And that can be frustrating for Chris, but or play a certain coverage that can take him away, which forces the ball to maybe go somewhere else. And he's a great team player. He's got great leadership. He's got a great attitude, and he's got a bright future in football. I mean, a really bright future. He's a first rounder. So how does that all work out when the dynamics of the team week in and week out? You don't know. It changes. He caught a post for a touchdown and got called back in the game. He catches that, maybe his numbers look different. You just don't know. It's just kind of how the game shakes out. But he's playing at a high level. He's a great leader and a great captain.
We're going to go far left, Olivia Wild, Spectrum 1.
Hi, Coach. I want to transition to senior day. Talk a little bit about the legacy the senior class will be leaving, how they helped this season, their legacy as a whole.
Yeah, well, they've been through a lot. They've been through COVID. They've been through, a great run last year, and they've been through a lot this year. And they've grown a lot. A lot of them didn't have a ton of experience going into this year. Some others did. They came back, and so there's a bunch of them in there. But they won a lot of football games, and like you said, a lot of them have left legacies behind of, how others have shown them the way, and how now they're showing some of the younger guys the same way. I think that's been really strong. I'm very proud of the legacy that they've left our younger players. I think it's real. I think they take a lot of pride in Ohio State, especially at a time where it's a little bit more about me than it is the university and the program. I don't feel that with our team. I think there's a lot of pride in being Buckeyes, and I know that going out in the stadium is going to mean a lot to them.
And what are you telling your guys ahead of senior day to pump them up? Does this mean something special to them this week? Talk a little bit about that.
I try to talk to them about it during the season. I mentioned it for a while last week. I said, and I just talked to them, don't wait till the last game to lay it all on the field, because, I was there. My last game, it's like, man, I wish I had a couple more games. And so I try to bring it up to them all the time. Like, don't wait till your last game. Like, do it now, because you just never know what's coming. You certainly don't want any regrets. So this is just another opportunity to get out there. But it also bring up some emotions. There's been a lot that they've done to get to this point. There's a lot of work, and they need to enjoy the day and take it all in.
Got time for just a few more. Go over here to the far right, Don Taberry, WBNS.
Coach, obviously this time of the year, weather can be a factor. The conditions this past Saturday weren't great, cold, there was wind.
Yeah.
CJ was 31 and 38. I mean, just how impressed were you with the performance given that?
Yeah, it wasn't perfect, but we always talk about how you have to handle it better than your opponent. We can't control the weather. Kind of the same situation happened in Indiana, kind of out of the blue. And we're going to have situations like that. It's not going to get any warmer. It's not going to get any brighter out. I know that. So we're going to have to be able to handle it. But we knew that. We talked about in November, these last 6 weeks, there's a lot that comes with that. And typically the tougher team, tougher physically, tougher mentally, and tougher emotionally will win. And so we've talked about it, but I thought our guys played tough. And, it was cold and it was windy, but that's football in November in the Big Ten.
But for him to be able to grow in those conditions, what did you learn about him then?
Yeah, I asked him before the game, I said, can a Cali kid throw the ball in 40-degree weather with 10-mile-an-hour winds? And he said, yeah, no problem, Coach. He just shrugged it right off. So, it's always good to see. You never know until you see it, but there'll be worse weather coming.
How big of a challenge is this Saturday? When you look at these guys, what do you see?
Yeah, it's a huge challenge. And it's a challenge because they're very, very good, a top 10 team in the country, playing for a chance to go to Indy. We got everything on the line here. And, both teams have had to bring it every week for a long time. We're in November. So when you add all those things up, it's a giant challenge.
Far right, Adam King, WBNS.
You talked about the challenge. You said March Madness a lot, heard from the team a lot. How much do you guys focus on the fact that this is a top 10 game? I mean, this is the eyes of college football on you. And then how much do you say just treat it like another game?
Well, we always say it's always been about us. And so it doesn't matter who we're playing. It's about our preparation and who we are. And If we're playing at our standard, then a lot of good things happen. So that's what we focus on. But at the same time, we have a lot of respect for every team we play. And we knew this 6-game run here at the end of the season, if you don't show up, you're going to get beat. Just the bottom line. And we try to own that and bring it every week and be consistent. And that's what greatness is bringing it every week. They don't say you're a great team if you don't bring it every week. And so that's what we got to do. And a big part of that is just having the respect for these teams like we do Michigan State.
Do you guys get excited for having maybe that game that's on the center stage, that top 10 matchup? You get fired up for that?
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, this is what it's all about, is being in November and having game day in town and top 10 matchup. I mean, this is why you come to Ohio State.
And we'll wrap it up with probably a quickie or two from Tim May, Letterman Row.
I don't know if that was a cut or what. What do you think, Ryan?
No, you're good.
When you get ready to present, you and Corey, y'all get ready to present CJ, hey, this is what this team's all about this week. You're facing. How much at this point in the season do you pare things down? I mean, try to keep from overloading, I guess, what he should prepare for. But then number two, to extrapolate where that defense can now go based on what you guys have shown. I mean, is that the great juggling match at this moment, the information?
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think you can really screw guys up, or you cannot give them enough information. I think, how do you process all that information as a coach, but just sift it through and just give them exactly what they need, and keep it really, really clean so their eyes are really, really. If you have to reteach something, if you start to give them things to think about that are out of whack, you can confuse a player really fast. And so that's why I take that very, very serious.
And one other quickie, promise the last one. Is it a benefit playing Michigan State now 10 games into the year as opposed to playing this team which was totally remade, roster-wise by Mel Tucker over the offseason? Now you have a much more of a sense of what that team is all about when you watch them on video, if you follow my drift there.
Yeah, I think we're both different now, and it's just a different challenge. It would have been a different challenge if it was week 3 or 4 of the season, but certainly if it was week 1, we're just a different team now. So, once the schedule came out, you knew you'd have the season to kind of get a feel for who you are and who they are, and that's a different challenge than coming in on the first couple games of the year, and you have the whole off season to kind of change who you are, your personnel, your scheme, your coaching, and but now there's a body of work there to work upon when you're trying to game plan.
Can I ask one last quickie? Is there a point of pride for you and your group that y'all are number 1 in the nation in total offense and number 1 in scoring offense, in scoring? Do you feel like y'all are getting there?
I think I think we have confidence, and I think we're proud of that. Yes, but I also think that there's there's an expectation, and that we all have, and you don't just go out there and score X number of points. You take it one play at a time, and you play clean, and a lot of big plays are going to happen. And when we start to focus on that, that's what's important. But really, the thing that happened last week is we had a great week of practice. We had an edge to us. We practiced with purpose. There were guys who wanted to get things right, and because of that, we played that way. And that's what we got to do. And sometimes for 18, 19, 20-year-old guys, that's not always easy. But that's the challenge this week. And if we practice that way on all 3 phases, then we're going to have a better week on Saturday.